Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week by week basis. And today I'm going to talk about education. On the conversation on education, I want to talk about how to respond and not react. I'm going to talk about how you differentiate between reactiveness and responsiveness, and why responsiveness will help you win every single time. And so I think that this conversation should be prefaced with the fact I don't embody my emotions. I intellectualize my emotions. So as my emotions are happening, I have to think about what I feel. I have to name it. There's a bit of a funnel that happens. And so while I'm working towards more integrating, being in my emotions while also deciding how to move forward, I think that the fact that there's a little bit of distance between my emotional reaction and myself, there's not this embodiment. I don't become my emotion. I think that enables me to be more responsive than reactive. Now, all of that to say, I used to be very reactive. I used to be, as a child, someone where it was very easy to get a reaction out of me. And I think that shifted and changed with experience and with maturity, with just recognizing that it can be very entertaining to people if they see that it's so easy to push your buttons. So I made it my mission to make it less straightforward to push mine. And I also have a method of attack. So if it is the case that my buttons are being pressed in a specific way, then I know how best to address the issue without necessarily burning myself out, getting emotional about it. And so I am naturally a passionate person. I am someone who just feels everything very intensely. So I think I've mentioned in a few videos that I consider myself to be HSP. So me talking about my journey from react responsiveness is a lot of intentional work, a lot of mindful work, and a lot of decision making around the values and convictions that I have around how much access I give people to my energy, especially if they're eliciting negative reactions out of me. If someone makes me feel things that I would rather not feel, if someone is frustrating me by any means, then I want to respond in a way that best serves me and best serves the situation. I don't care about what feels good in the moment. I care about what can I do that will get me the furthest return in my energy, and that will curtail the issues and the situations that are bringing up this discomfort, essentially, or this frustration, whatever it might be. And so I think the first thing that I want to say about reactiveness is reactiveness takes the control away from you. I think how I differentiate between reactiveness and responsiveness is when you are reactive, you're letting the situation pull out anything and everything that it wants out of you. And later on, you might find yourself backpedaling, feeling like you've talked out of turn, that you didn't really represent yourself in the best way. And so that's why I decide, or I am someone who advocates for, unless you're in a position to be responsive, which means that you've experienced your emotion, you've held space for your emotion, you are back in a place where you can make decisions and you can still be emotional, right? I don't believe that people can't make decisions when they're emotional. I think that you can, but you have to be grounded, you have to be centered, you have to have that balance between the cerebral and the emotional to be able to make a decision that best serves you. And I think that responsiveness is making the decision that the situation requires, and also in a way that best serves you, where you're best representing yourself in that situation. And I think that a lot of the time you make it very easy for people who are pushing your buttons to get what they want when they can get a reaction out of you. And I think there's this one adage I would hear growing up that you give people power over you if they have the power to manipulate your emotions. And I am not interested in giving anyone that power. I have very strong emotions. The current runs incredibly deep, and I am the only one who holds the reins to those emotions. And it took me a while again to get there. And so a lot of intention, a lot of mindfulness, a lot of giving myself space to experience my emotions, and then giving myself sort of guardrails and navigating those emotions and how I want to respond. And if my response is no response for a period of time, will I sort my thoughts through? And it used to take me a lot of time. And I have to say that in relationship, when I recognized that the time that I took to process my emotions was really creating a lot of tension in my relationship, because I was taking too much time and then wanting to come back to it. So I had to figure out ways to process my emotions a little bit more quickly so that I could meet my partner halfway. But if I'm in a situation where just bringing out adverse reactions or emotions out of me, my focus is always on responsiveness and on the long game, right? So if it's in a relationship where I'm with my partner and he needs me to have we need to have that discussion, we need to meet each other halfway, then I'm happy to expedite that process. But because I want to be very intentional with how I move forward, I want to really have that calm clarity, crystal focus when I respond on the things that I'm feeling. I take my time, and I like to build a a case. And so that's my first step, is like making sure that you can objectively build a case that is not subject to interpretation. I think this is so important that you give yourself the opportunity to gather facts, gather details that make it so that when you vocalize your position and you build your defense, it's unrefutable. And I find that that's very important, because there's nothing more frustrating than building a defense that someone can easily rip down, especially when they're ripping it down with things that are not true or not at all a reflection of what's taken place. So I'm a big true believer of building a case. And I think that I have mentioned a few anecdotes on this website where I talked about how I, in dealing with like high stake situations, I document everything. And that is a practice, that is a muscle that I learned from being in HR. I worked in talent management for a little while. And it's something that I feel like everyone needs to understand, like the significance, where everything, every situation, how you document it is going to be how you build your defense, or how you even create a snapshot of those moments and those memories when you're dealing with the after effect of it. I mean, it's such a crucial and important skill to hone in on, because then it enables you to build a very solid bulletproof defense. And I am someone who is a believer of, I don't like the he said, she said. I don't like going to battle or going to head with people if I don't need to. I would rather take a step back, be more deliberate, and build a case, because chances are, if it's getting under my skin to the extent where I'm thinking to myself, well, how do I deal with the situation? Like if it's become even a situation, then it involves a paper thread, or involves me needing to build a case by establishing a paper trail that makes my position, my interpretation of events, something that is unrefutable. I think that's so important, because I think sometimes we believe that our truth is the only truth that exists until we're in a situation where we're having someone mediate two truths, and we realize, like, if we don't really give ourselves the opportunity to build a case that fully defends our position, then it can not only break down the argument that we have, but it can really destroy our credibility as well. So it's important to have the facts laid out before you decide to take things out ahead. And I think that if you take that time to do that, then you're being much more responsive than reactive, because it will take time to build a case that people can stand against, essentially. And I also do believe that responsiveness gives you the opportunity to find the middle ground. So it's more acting on your values and convictions, and it's the values and convictions that are being triggered, which are triggering the emotions within you. But rather than like being in that emotion and how you're responding to the situation, you're asking yourself, well, also in alignment with my values and my convictions, like what's the best way that I can represent myself as I challenge this situation? And it's always about challenging a situation that's upsetting. I am not someone who ever believes that the appropriate response to something that rubs against the grain of my values, of my beliefs, of my convictions, is to let it happen, or to just kind of walk away, or to sweep it under the rug. I want to address it. I will deal with it head on. I will do everything that I need to do, including enduring hardships of my own. If it is a case that I stand on a specific value, a specific conviction, a specific belief, like there's no version of reality where I'm going to compromise on those values, convictions, and beliefs. And I am someone who is very tenacious in that sense. And because I have been able to hold my ground in situations that are incredibly high stakes, where the stakes aren't like life and death, like understand that I'm going to hold to those convictions. I'm not going to get tired to the extent where I'm going to allow abuse, mistreatment, like inappropriate behavior, so on and so forth take place. Like if that's happening, understand that I have the wherewithal to deal with the situation until the situation has reached an ultimate resolution. Like I'm not going to just allow myself to submit to the kind of toxicity that some people submit to, right? And this can be in relationships, it can be in friendships, it can be in the different communities that you find yourself in. I think that you do the best for you in how you manage the situation. And always, like if your convictions and your values and your beliefs are being triggered, I feel like there's something that needs to change here. Don't wait for someone else to make the change. You can create any change that you want, that you need, that you feel is important. Understand, if the moment that you feel that it's important is a moment that you yourself should take the accountability to make a change happen. I think so often we think that other people are there to make change happen, and we would rather kind of be the silent cheerleaders in the background. But no, like all of us have an agency. All of us have the ability to create impact, to make change happen. And if we're in the spaces and places that we find ourselves in, like I believe that every space and place that I have found myself in, I believe that I'm in those spaces specifically to make change happen. And I believe so fundamentally in that, because I'm so intentional about where I put my time and energy. I believe that every place that I find find myself in, regardless of the friction points, regardless of the politics, regardless of what challenges that I'm facing, I'm in alignment in being there. And if there's disruption because I'm there, then I believe that I am the change that's making things happen. Like I believe that I am supposed to be the disruption in the environment that I'm in, and that I am supposed to figure out a way around it, or I'm supposed to find a way to resolve it, or I'm supposed to find a way to succeed through it. And in that, I am also putting onus on myself and accountability on myself for my becoming, which is just so important. I think that responsiveness is also asking yourself, like, how do I want to show up? Like, how do I want to represent myself, and how I articulate, like, how I feel about the situation, how I articulate, like, what resolutions I feel are important. How do I best represent myself in all situations, settings that create this, I guess, dissonance between how I would love things to go and how things are going, and how do I build the bridge between the two? Like, how do I create the version of reality that I prefer? And I think that we're always in a position to create the version of reality that we want. We're never helpless. And I think that even the sense of helplessness is very much a learned behavior that we're all going to benefit from unlearning at some point in stage in our lives. And I think that responsiveness gives us the opportunity to reflect, to take a step back, to gauge the situation, do a 360 review, and then decide how we position ourselves for action, how we position ourselves for success, how we position ourselves for remediation, for resolution, so on and so forth, but never to surrender to situations or to settings that we feel are less ideal. Because no, like, I believe that I have enough strength within myself that if I'm in a place and I'm creating disruption in that place and I'm making change happen, I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it for the people who come after me, who might not be as strong as me. And because I recognize my strength, like, I understand that me and how I choose and all of the situations that require a choice that I feel like is going to set the trajectory of my life, whether that's professional or personal, I know that it's not just for me, it's for everyone who comes after me. And I think that because I consider myself a leader in that right, like, all of my choices are more about, like, the people around me, recognizing the choices that I'm making is about influence and about creating a positive influence, right? And like, people see you standing in integrity, if they see you making the decisions that are hard, if they see you enduring hardships and see you really pushing through and not letting yourself bend to those things, it gives them more, I guess, of an anchor to do the same if they haven't been. And I think that it's much harder for us to be the voice of integrity, to be tenacious, to endure through hardships, to persevere, and to be resilient if we don't see examples of that around us. If we see that everyone is sort of bowing down or being intimidated or being subjected to behaviors that are less than ideal, like, if you don't see someone standing up to that and saying that that's wrong and making a change, then why would you feel incentivized to be that person yourself? And I think that I have had enough examples in my life of people who were game changers, and that's why I love that slogan of game changers for Project Purpose, that I understand that I have the duty in my life to be a game changer in the places and situations that I find myself in. And the only way that I can do that is by allowing myself the space to reflect and to be responsive, not be reactive, not let people pull me into a state where I'm not best representing myself, where I'm not best representing the situation, the people, places, and people that are waiting for me to take direction or to be the guiding sort of light in how we kind of move forward. I really do take that responsibility very seriously. And so I think that thinking to yourself, well, how do I myself personally with my emotional footprint, and all of us have our own emotional footprints, we all have our own, I guess, pet peeves and trigger points. How do you manage to master your pet peeves and your trigger points so that you're always responsive to a situation in a way that best represents you, that best represents the people that you're defending, that best represents the trajectory that you would like to, I guess, create influence in taking? Like, how do you do that? And only when you ask yourself those key questions are you positioning yourself to get the clarity you need to get the answer. And again, like, it can be arduous. There can be hardships that you endure or challenges, but there is no hardship, challenge, or situation that I have endured that I regret the way that I've shown up in those spaces. I am very much proud of the ways that I have shown up for myself in my life, despite sometimes the collateral damage that those choices created. I think I would be in a much worse position if I had not made those choices. And because I feel so confident about that, I feel so, I think, capable in whatever comes next, because I give myself the space to reflect, to really introspect before I respond. And I feel like responsiveness is something that I value to such an extent that I'm not going to put myself in a position where I am cornered and reacting in a way that doesn't align with my highest self. I think that every conversation that has weight behind it where the outcomes are going to really have significant impact, like it is worth giving yourself the space to be responsive. If that means rather than just responding, you ask a lot of different questions to give yourself the opportunity to recalibrate, because asking a question requires you to get back to your cerebral, and even answering questions requires you to get back to your cerebral. So giving yourself the space to ask questions, to make sure you have that clarity, to paraphrase, to reflect emotion, to give yourself the opportunity to find yourself back to center, gives you the opportunity to be responsive. And so that's what I want this conversation to be about, to give yourself the sense that you don't have to be your emotion, right? And I think a lot of us, we are very expressive, and I am an emotionally expressive person. I am a highly sensitive person. Like, I am not someone I would consider to be calm. I can be a quiet person, but I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of energy coursing through these veins when it comes to the things that matter a lot. But still, I manage myself to the extent where you're only going to get a response out of me. You're not going to get a reaction. And I've learned enough about letting people sort of manage and manipulate my reactions that I recognize that that's never going to serve me. And so at this stage in my game, it will take something would really have to catch me in the left field to get a reaction out of me that isn't something that I would think to myself would be the best way of moving forward. To get a reaction of me that I didn't feel best represented myself. And so I wanted to come in here and talk about that, to give you that food for thought, to ask yourself, well, wait, am I someone who is emotionally reactive, or am I someone who is emotionally responsive? And what are the benefits from reactivity to responsiveness? And how do I build a bridge between the two and then burn the bridge? Because emotional reactivity, I don't think that it serves you. I don't think it serves anyone who wants to say things and then have to take them back. It's just not the best way of managing situations, right? And so I want to come in here and talk about that, and to give you that food for thought. Now, if you're interested in having these kinds of conversations more frequently, if you want to focus on that self-mastery, to give you that sense of fulfillment, that meaning, that inner alignment, and how you show up in every space and place you find yourself in, then I do invite you to check out our adult program. We do provide development workshops. They're completely online, and you can manage your pace as you need to, as you see fit. We also do provide something for children. We do offer parent-child workshops that give you the opportunity to cultivate leadership competencies within your children. And so these core competencies, we do believe, fall within 4 core pillars. That's focusing on cultivating self-concept, autonomy, self-efficacy, and compassion. Something for everyone in your family, something for you, of course. And if you're still here, please subscribe, be a game changer, giving us a small role to play in your self-mastery journey. Thank you again so much, and we'll talk to you all very soon.